Previously, a shy waitress accidentally spilled coffee on the city's most feared billionaire. Instead of firing her, he offered her a job. Now, she's stepping into a world filled with power, pride, and pressure. But she has no idea. This cold-hearted billionaire is about to feel something he's never allowed himself to feel. Real love. Real conflict.
Anna's P&T of view. I found it really hard for me to relax throughout the entire time I was in the limo, so much that my legs wouldn't stop shaking, and in turn, the fabric of my uniform rubbed and made a very soft yet annoying sound. Would you just stop that? It's annoying. I can't even hear myself think, groaned Jackson. Sorry, I said softly, while I tried to control my trembling knees. Why are you so nervous anyway? You scared of me or something? He asked, his dark eyes staring straight to my soul. The way his glare fixated on me made my throat feel dry and my heart speed up. He was intimidating, and didn't he know it? I felt myself shiver, and I looked away as I said no. He simply mumbled MMH. Then it went quiet. Then out of nowhere he stood from his side and planted himself next to me. On instinct I tried to move, but when he placed his hand on mine, I knew moving away would be a mistake. I tried to look away from him, but he placed his finger underneath my chin and directed my eyes to his face. He slowly caressed my face. As he leaned in, he ran his thumb across my bottom lip, and I found myself drawing in a shaky breath. He brought his lips to my neck and I slightly jumped with a gasp. He chuckled at my reaction, and I felt his chest rumble against my arm. I closed my eyes, but when I felt his hand travel to my knee, causing me to quickly snap them open. He looked me in the eye, then made it as though he was going to kiss me, and I found myself drawn to his seductive approach. When my lips were just centimeters from touching his, he whispered, "Think to lie to me again, princess, and I will hurt you." Then he shoved me and went back to his seat. His game and rejection suddenly made me feel so weak and cheap I felt like crying. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't waste a second on me. I wasn't even his type. Not that I liked him either, but men and I never seemed to connect. It was the first time I was touched so tenderly and caressed so softly. Nevertheless, I tried to shake off the sad air that sat around me. I shouldn't fret over this man. He's making me work my pay over a shirt. It was stupid, to be honest. I kept my eyes downcast for the rest of the ride, and I did everything in my power to keep his attention away from me. The limo drove through the city, then ventured into the more high-class neighborhoods. Huge mansions bordered the large streets on both sides. Manicured lawns and expensive cars decorated the neighborhoods. As we drove on, the mansions became more spaced out, with mini forests in between each home, until eventually we pulled up to a very secluded mansion. It was humongous. A castle. Someone must have screwed my jaw because it hit the floor in shock. "Come on, I don't have all day," he said as he shoved me towards the opened car door. I followed dizzily after him as my eyes jumped from one site to another. Acres of land surrounded the entire foundation. Flower beds crowned the house, as well as the statues and waterfalls that were placed all over the house. The mansion itself stood tall, glamorous, and as intimidating as its owner. It was overwhelming. Once we stepped inside, I had to force myself to keep from gasping out loud. The inside decor was worth more than any amount I've spent my entire life. The interior was kept clean, neat, and very bright. Credit to the large windows that occupied the walls of the building. He kept his colors light, such as a white and blue family room, white and gold dining room, white and red living room, and a brown staircase with white borders. He walked into his home as if he was so over everything in there, yet here I was waddling behind him, my eyes wide in shock and wonder. "If you're done gawking, I suggest you follow me to my office, so we can get down to business," he said in a straight tone, snapping me out of my daze. I followed behind him quietly, to his office that was located on the first floor. He opened the door and walked himself in, without any courtesy for me. Once we stepped into his study, and he went straight behind his desk, and sat down. I followed his actions and sat down on one of the chairs facing him. The minute I sat down, the door closed behind me. I turned sharply to find both Stuart and the bald eagle standing on each side of the door, with their hands clasped in front of them. The bald eagle was just scary, but when my eyes shifted to Stuart, he smiled and sent a wink my way. But I found it hard to trust his smile, given that I was basically kidnapped by them. I turned back around to find Jackson's eyes on me, with his arms crossed. We were quiet for a moment, with Jackson's eyes fixated on me, while my eyes bounced around in the room, looking anywhere but at him. So here is how this is going to go down. You will spend the next 3 months here as my secretary. You will do anything I ask of you, no questions asked. You will also be staying here. I made sure to have my people arrange a room for you as we speak. You'll be provided with anything you need, and if you're to leave this house, you will have an escort with you. Is that clear? He asked simply, and I looked at him with my eyes blank. Was he serious? Why can't I go home? I asked meekly, my palms becoming sweaty. Because you might skip town, he said calmly. Are you serious? I asked him with a scoff, but he refused to answer. Do you have any questions? He asked, all businesslike. Should you really be asking that? I sassed, my anger taking over my shyness. Okay, sweetheart. For one, calm the attitude. I am not going to have you disrespect me. Trust me when I tell you that I will hurt you if you push me. Now, do you have any questions? I drew in a shaky breath, and I looked down, trying to build my strength. Then, I looked at him and said, I am not going to sleep with you. And Nas, PNT of view. It was quiet after my courageous declaration, and I sat mutely waiting for a reaction. Then out of nowhere, Stuart burst into laughter, and I turned around to find him laughing himself stupid. And when I turned back to face Jackson, he didn't seem to find it as amusing as Stuart. In fact, he was so unimpressed that his cold eyes stared daggers at me. Call Sonia, was all he said. Stuart, still laughing, turned with a, oh man, she told you. Then he left to go fetch this person called Sonia. It was now so tense. Given that the bald eagle was practically invisible, it was only Jackson and I. He stared at me, when all of a sudden he smirked, leaned back in his chair, then exhaled calmly as he said, Are you confident about what you just said? I found myself gulping at the threat that undertoned his words. His eyes flicked over to the bald eagle, and he signaled for him to leave, causing a cold fear to envelope me. As soon as the door was closed and we were alone, he stood up and made his way towards me. But when he started getting too close, I sprung to my feet and began backing up. He smirked at my measly attempts to get away from him, as he stalked towards me in a predator-like manner. One would think that the brightest idea would be for me to walk towards the door, but instead my shaky knees led me to walk backwards around his desk and into the wall. When he noticed that I had nowhere else to go, he quickly stepped up to me. My chest was rising and falling quickly, and my palms were becoming sweaty. My eyes locked onto his chest and refused to look anywhere else. Suddenly, he placed his large hand at the base of my neck, yet he didn't squeeze. He just left it there. He leaned down and I felt the tip of his nose touch my cheek. The action was unexpected, and a gasp flew past my lips. You're afraid of me, he stated. Then he kissed my nose with a soft peck. Look at me, he said quietly, but I was frozen. Look at me, he said a little harsher, and yet my eyes refused to obey. His fingers tightened around my throat ever so slightly, and with a gasp, my eyes snapped to his cold blue ones. He seemed satisfied, for the hold around my throat loosened. Then he leaned down. He ghosted his lips on mine as he asked, Can I get a kiss? Just a simple kiss. I found myself swallowing a gulp of saliva before I shook my head in sign of no. No? He teased as he chuckled softly. You don't want to kiss me? He pouted, his lips dancing faintly against mine. I found my tongue darting out to wet my bottom lip when the door burst open and an elderly woman came through the door saying, Jackson? What in heaven's name? You're scaring the poor child. Let her go. Suddenly Jackson was no longer on me, and I found myself being pulled into a warm embrace. I was just having some fun, Sonia. But since you've ruined it, you can take her up to her room now. I have work to do anyway, and she's not my type, said Jackson as he brushed me off, and my heart fell. Well then. Come on, dear. Just ignore him. Has nothing but a big bully, said Sonia as she held me in her arms and led me out of the office, up the stairs, and down the right-wing hall, to my room, or should I say suite. Large windows illuminated the room that was thrice as large as my entire studio. A large king-sized bed, covered in a chocolate-brown silk duvet, summoned me over, but not before the double-door walk-in closet caught my eye. Your bathroom is over on your right. The key to the balcony door is in the first drawer of your nightstand. Go ahead and get settled. I'll call you down in a few hours for dinner, and then tomorrow Seymour will send for Jackson's stylist, and we will have a whole new wardrobe set for you," said Sonia, as she smiled warmly at me. "Thank you," I said with a smile, and with a simple nod, Sonia exited and closed the door behind her. Overwhelmed, I walked over to the bed and sat down, finally alone, and finally able to think about what the heck just happened downstairs between Jackson and I. However, before I could even get my thoughts together, a knock came from the door. I carefully stood up and made my way over to the door. Once I opened it, I found Stuart standing there, with his arms behind his back and a smile on his face. "I think we got off on the wrong foot. I want to apologize for scaring you earlier, and I'd like it if we were friends. I brought you a rose as a token of my apology and friendship," said Stuart as he bowed and presented me a white flower. I tried to keep a straight face, and I tried even harder to stay mad at him, but I found my lips cracking into a smile at his dramatic acting. "Neither the apology, friendship, nor rose is accepted," I stated, trying to pull on a straight face. "Aw, come on. Don't be such a party pooper. I'm sorry, but once Jackson has his mind set on something, there's no way to change it. He's as stubborn as they come. If you don't want to be my friend, can you at least accept the rose? I got it from Sonia's garden. Let's not let the rose go to waste, huh?" he explained as he grabbed my left hand in a soft manner, opened my palm, and placed the rose in my hand. Then he closed my fingers slowly and held onto my hand as he looked into my eyes and sincerely said, "I'm sorry." Then he let go of my hand and walked away. I stood at the door for a while just looking at the now empty hallway. Stuart was a strange guy, but what he just did was sweet, I think. Shaking my head, I sighed and closed the door, then plopped myself down onto the bed, and soon enough, I was taken over by sleep. A nice P&T of view. Working for Jackson turned out to be the most tiring job I have ever had. It's like he was on work steroids or something, always about business in his office, unless of course his attention was drawn to me. The day would begin bright and early. I'd wake up, dress in business attire that outlined my body more than anything I had in my regular closet, given that my clothes tend to be very loose and comfortable. I had to wear lipstick, mascara, and eyeshadow. My guess is chapstick wasn't professional enough. And my hair always had to be either in a bun or a sleek ponytail, which was a constant battle given that my tight, coily and coarse curls were not always cooperative. Following my second day at Jackson's house, his stylist took me out on a shopping spree, which I had absolutely no say in. I was simply there for Gerard to make sure that everything he picked out for me looked great on my chocolatey skin. After getting ready each morning, Jackson, who always looked dashing in his business designer suits, and me along with the bald eagle and Stuart, would have breakfast served by Sonia. Then we would hop into the limo, and off to Jackson's company we would go. The Oil Green Core Company was well sheltered in a mesmerizing yet intimidating skyscraper. Everyone that works for Jackson respected and feared him. The minute he walks into the lobby, everyone stands in respect, and once he has passed by, they all scurry along to do their jobs. Working as his secretary is intense and demanding. The day was always unpredictable. It could start out with getting his coffee and ending with me picking up his dry cleaning. My entire day consisted of going in and out of meetings, jotting down notes, setting up meetings, organizing files, and everything else in between, such as booking dinner dates between him and potential partners and clients, making reservations, and setting up travel schedules. Not to mention constantly transferring calls from thirsty bachelorettes to the most eligible bachelor in New Jersey. What made it worse was that my desk was placed in Jackson's large office, so on slow days, when he didn't have many meetings, it would be quite suffocating to be in there alone with him. Given that he was a serious businessman, there were times he was very focused on his work, and something as simple as me dropping a pen would make him tick. However, there are other days when he was in high spirits. Getting under my skin would be his main goal. Jackson didn't seem to handle my rejection very well, and he would always try to find a way to get under my skin. He would tease me, make me feel things, then he would pretend as though it meant nothing. Oh, and should I mention, he always made it clear that I wasn't his type. Hence the reason why I try to stay away from him as much as possible. Well, easier said than done. "Kiss me," he said to me, as he approached me all of a sudden. "No," I said, as I stood up, and he got closer. Why not? He asked, as he quickly wrapped his arm around my waist, gluing me to his chest, minimizing my chances of escaping. Because you're my boss at the moment, and you're a jerk, I stated, as I struggled to get out of his hold, not that it's any use, given that I have the strength of a mouse compared to his bare strength. Aw, but you're killing me here, come on, just one taste, that's all I ask, he whispered in a sensual voice, causing my resistance to weaken. Jackson, no, I said, turning my face from him. He just wouldn't give up. See, I don't handle being told no very well. And just like that, he pinned me to the wall by my waist and crashed his lips against mine. I tried to push him off, I struggled, and I slapped his chest. But it was no use. The more I struggled, the more he seemed to enjoy his little quest. His tongue plunged into my mouth as I gasped. I bit his tongue, and he growled, biting me harder. His possessive hold suddenly became more powerful, and I realized fighting him would only make things worse. I slowed down my flimsy punches until I laid my palms flat against his chest. Jackson's lips softened against mine, and I slowly found myself kissing him back, not that I fully knew what I was doing. His hold eased into a more romantic hold. His right palm landed against my neck and cheek, and I wrapped my arms around his neck, pulling him closer as he sandwiched me between his fit body and the hard wall. Suddenly, his leg found its way in between my legs, and the fight started again. I sent fisted hits into his chest, yet he chuckled, and the rumble from his body caused a sudden shock to go through me. With a gasp, I tried to pull away. Keyword, tried. Once he seemed to get enough of my measly assault, he grabbed my arms and pinned them above my head, as his hips pushed against me. At one point, his whole body was pressed up against me, as his tongue and lips worked wonders in my inexperienced mouth. He finally pulled away, placing his forehead on mine, his dark eyes penetrating mine, his lips inches from my gasping ones. He closed his eyes, pecked my lips softly with his. Then he pulled away from me. He backed away with a smirk and said, "Next time, you might as well just say yes." Then he backed away and smirked at my flustered expression, as his face morphed into his serious face, and he asked from behind his desk, "Did you hear what I said?" Huh? I blinked as my mind cleared up, and I found Jackson looking at me with a strange expression while he sat behind his desk, where he had been the entire time. I said, "I'm going to need the notes you took down from the Marcel meeting before we leave for the day." He explained, almost exasperated with my behavior. "Oh, yes, I'll have it ready for you," I said, my cheeks flaming in embarrassment. Oh Lord, kill me now. I was fantasizing about him again. "Are you all right?" he asked at my red face. Yeah, I'm fine," I said, and quickly tried to refocus on my work. Out of fear of all the terrible things Jackson could do to me while in his employment, my brain began generating all the crazy and complicated events that could occur between Jackson and I, none which I truly wanted to become a reality. Jackson scared me enough as it was. The last thing I wanted was for him to scar me too. God, I really needed to get my head out of the gutter.
You have reached a